What's going on, guys? Welcome to a very spooky episode of Renegade Marquee on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, we've got Jacob.
Sup, y'all?
We've got Nick.
Evil dies tonight until it doesn't.
And we've got Tommy.
Good evening, Captain, and hello to all viewers listening in. Thanks for having me back on. I'm excited to be back and talking about one of the more divisive motion pictures of 2022.
That's putting it lightly. We are talking about the final installment of David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy, Halloween Ends. Now, before we get too deep into the meat of things, I kind of want to get us all on the same page. So, Nick, I'm going to start with you. Your thoughts on, at the very least, the David Gordon Green trilogy, and then I guess the Halloween franchise as a whole.
Oh, Halloween, even the bad movies I enjoy on some level. Like I know Resurrection is an absolute farce of a movie, but I enjoy the shit out of that farce of a movie just because it's so stupid, but at the same time it's kind of like a train wreck you can't take your eyes off of. The only ones that I wouldn't go back to, even on that level, are probably both the Rob Zombie remakes. I actually think both are really bad, but nonetheless. The H40 trilogy, I think, is uneven. I actually think that they should have just flat out ended it after the 2018 movie, just because that was more kind of the back to roots. Michael Myers is just a guy who breaks out of a mental institution, puts on a Shatner mask, and starts killing people. So that I really like that movie in particular, but obviously because it was a box office hit, sequels had to get made. And yeah, this trilogy, it's weird. I'll save my thoughts for when we're really tearing into this movie.
Yeah, I think this might be one of the more blatant cases of the first movie was a hit, so we're going to keep going. And we'll get into the ripple effects in a second, but Tommy, I want to get your thoughts. We talked last time about Halloween Kills, but for those who may not have heard that episode, you want to just recap your thoughts on the franchise?
Absolutely. My overall thoughts on this particular trilogy, when it came back, I had the mantra of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I say that because H2O holds a very special place in my heart. And after what Jamie Lee Curtis described in a 2012 convention panel with her experience in making H2O and Resurrection, it kind of took me aback in a way, because as good of a movie as H2O was, the experience that she described making it was kind of shocking. So it made sense for her to come back in that regard to tell this requel. And when I thought about this trilogy, thinking back to today, I think of how Halloween 2018, even with the message of empowerment, I was too distracted by the story's decision to axe Jefferson Hall's character right before the second act. And I say this because every time Toby Huss appeared in the Falling Action, I kept saying to myself, why isn't Aaron here? When you combine that with the forced number of homages to the lore as presented as they were, it was hammered down the viewer's throat, and it was left with an unfinished mess. As a result, I was not looking forward to Halloween Kills. And that's why I found it to be such a delightful surprise, because of its pace, groundbreaking story advancement, makeup, and music. It was what this iteration of the Halloween lore needed in showcasing that it's more than simply a horror story about a slasher in a mask. And that brings us to today, and I will save my thoughts on Halloween Ends for later in this episode.
All right, Jacob, you've got the hot seat. Your thoughts on the Halloween franchise?
Well, I am embarrassingly kind of a newbie. Like, novice when it comes to the Halloween franchise. I've only seen the first one way back when, like in 2009 was the first time I saw it. I only like kind of experienced the rest of the franchise vicariously through Cinemassacre Monster Madness, James Rolfe's review of like horror things and stuff. So like I'm not really the kind of person to kind of turn to for an opinion on these sort of things. I understand the problems with Rob Zombie's Halloween, but I do kind of enjoy that as like a remake that's just completely its own thing. The clips from Halloween 2, though, from what I have seen, it just looks really like, what the fuck is this? With the stuff like the white horse and shit, and so I saw Halloween 2018 when it came out. I actually enjoyed that one. I thought it was a decent. It got the job done. Like it knew like to just continue the basics of the original film. It doesn't go into anything that was brought up in the sequels. Like not even that Michael and Laurie were brother and sister, and I thought it was pretty refreshing that it was a back to basics sequel while also being a decent legacy sequel. Even like it addresses Laurie's PTSD. It addresses like the failed attempt to kind of deconstruct horror monster. Like kind of see that I loved the climax in Laurie's house. I will say that like it was pretty cool. Like little subtle nods that imply that she was now like Michael's level in terms of skills and such. Halloween Kills, I did see that when it was streaming on, it was shown simultaneously in theaters and Peacock, so I kind of watched it on Peacock, taking advantage of the fact that I could. I wasn't able to record my thoughts for the podcast because some personal stuff came up, and it was, I really didn't like it at first. It just felt too big, I thought, for my taste. Like it just, some of the kills were just plain stupid even. And it just felt excessive a little bit for me, but watching it again in preparation for Halloween Ends, I like it more than I originally did. I'll just say that. Like the kills were more entertaining than I remember. I will say it, although the dialogue could get a little pretentious, like like everyone's Dr. Loomis all of a sudden. It succeeded at just being a big popcorn flick, in my opinion, although it did kind of betray that when it did go into more philosophical. And yeah, that's it from my thoughts for the first two, and I'll get more into what I thought about Halloween Ends when we get to it.
All right. Basically, I'm kind of the same way with Jacob. Like, I'm not super well versed in the Halloween franchise. I love the original. The original is a classic, and nothing will take that away. I actually got to see that on the big screen the same year that Halloween 18 came out. That was a fun experience. And since then, I've seen all of the David Gordon Green movies on the big screen, the last two specifically in Dolby, which is now just my preferred format for horror and other films in general. I really liked 18 at first as just a very, very straightforward return to form slasher film. My thoughts on Halloween Kills have kind of gone back and forth. Like, I understand exactly why some critics hated it. There are certain characters that are way too over the top, even for this movie. But at least what that movie did have was some pretty gnarly kills. My favorite scene is still Michael coming out of the fire, and just every time I see that, that gets me excited. And also, this movie gave us Hunter's Moon by Ghost. So yeah, kind of have to appreciate it for that. And the fact that John Carpenter and his son have composed the score for all three, which is another net positive across the board.
Oh, I even own all of the soundtracks to these recent movies. I have 1, 2, 4, and 5 on vinyl. I don't have 3 yet.
Nice. Is Ends on the way?
in January, apparently, because of the whole vinyl pressing issues going on.
Oh, of course. Now it's time to get into the end game. I'm gonna start with this question. How do you feel about the ultimate thesis of this trilogy? Nick, I'll start with you.
I guess I'll start with this because I was really the only person who didn't mention anything about Halloween Kills. I soured on that movie fast. Like, I aggressively criticized the ever-loving shit out of that movie at least I want to say a good 2 weeks after it had come out. My entire issue is that it, not so much just the entire gore aspect that I was cool with. I was like, okay, this is more like proper slasher stuff. I can enjoy this as a pure theater experience. Then it goes back into the more paranormal side of Michael Myers that I'm just like, you spent the entire last movie trying to get away from. Why are you guys doing this again? And the whole Big John, Little John side plot of them living in the Myers house now, I just felt like deflated so much of what could have been really exciting and fast paced. Like, it just grinded it to a halt. And even because I had just watched 2018 and Kills back to back to basically just go straight to the theater to watch this one, even the theatrical edit I found insanely weird, because on the Blu-ray and 4K for Kills, it has an extended ending where it has Laurie basically staring Michael down and just going like, I'm coming after you, Michael. And it's like, why was this not added to the last couple of minutes of the movie? Like, did you really need to save a whole 3 minutes for the Blu-ray? I mean, so like my expectations kind of going into this were just like, if it goes off the walls, I'll probably wind up having a good time with it. And for me, because like I know a lot of people who really aggressively despise this movie already, and honestly, the way I kind of look at it, yeah, this trilogy is really uneven, but their plan wasn't really to do a trilogy. It was just, let's just do a proper direct sequel to the original Halloween, see how it goes over. And obviously, again, it did well in theaters and did well critically. So why not do 2 more? So the fact that this movie does kind of go off the rails, I kind of respect that. Yeah, it's weird that the last movie is where they decide to go off the rails, but I almost kind of respect that in a way.
Yeah. We'll touch on some of the sillier criticisms in a second.
Which, before we even really get too far ahead, like, this is not going to be one of those podcasts where it's like, oh, you're not a true Halloween or Michael Myers fan if you like the, like, no, let's not do any of that gatekeepy bullshit. Save that shit for the Star Wars fandom, not for, keep that out of horror, please. No thanks.
Oh yeah, no, totally agree there. Just getting back to the whole unevenness of the trilogy. Here's the budget for Halloween Ends. It was around 20 to 30 million, and over the week it already raked in like nearly 60 million globally. So it made back its budget and then some.
It made back its budget in the domestic box office alone, even, which
Yep.
Yeah, which is impressive considering that this is a day and date release, which for us, as far as we know, this could be the last day and date release period. Like, it does, if it is a significant milestone in the COVID era of movie going. Like, and fun to think about. Like, it's like, well, what else can they do? Like, it does seem like that kind of medium. Now we have a Venn diagram between movies shown in theaters and on streaming. That's kind of dead now, and it certainly looks that way.
That it does. Jacob, you want to go ahead and give your thoughts on Halloween Ends? First of all, did you see this in theaters or did you just watch it on Peacock?
I just watched it on Peacock.
Okay.
Because it's cheaper. I looked up. There was a deal to get Peacock Premium for just $1.99 a month. So yeah, I think I'll get that. Yeah, it's how I also every time like a movie like was released on like the day and date treatment, like I would default to the streaming version of it unless it was like an IMAX or something like Dune or the Suicide Squad, or if it was something like Black Widow, because I was not going to watch a movie like that for the first time on Disney Plus or Premier Access. But all that aside, I understand. I appreciate when a movie and a big horror franchise like this goes ambitious. I'm usually all for it. Okay. I love when a big Hollywood movie takes risks. That's why I loved The Last Jedi so much. Okay. But I draw the line when you take the main antagonist and the main protagonist for this movie, for this franchise as a whole, and brush them off to the side just to some completely new character we haven't even seen before and make him the focus of it. One thing. And the movie just dicks around that Michael isn't even the main killer of this movie, which they didn't think that might piss a few people off. So yeah, Halloween Ends. It has some ideas on its mind. I thought it just went about it the totally wrong way. I thought this movie was genuinely bad, and I was really hoping. I really wanted to give this movie a chance. I wanted it to be this big conclusion. At least be like, even if it was unnecessary, like if you were going to make this reboot to 3 movies, at least end it off with a bang, and this just ended with a whimper, unfortunately.
Okay, interesting. Tommy, you want to go next?
Empowerment, post-traumatic stress, the effects of one night in a small Midwestern town in the United States. While those elements are on different levels throughout the trilogy, they never leave the trilogy entirely. Not merely a story about a slasher in a mask, a showcase of dramatic horror and how a big picture presentation of one night evolves and its effects on these characters. That's what this trilogy is going to be remembered for.
Honestly, I'm torn. I really enjoyed the experience of watching this movie. I've seen it twice now. Once in Dolby, and then the other time on Peacock. And I'm not sure how I feel about this being the final installment. The last like 10 to 15 minutes, when Laurie and Michael finally just kind of hash it out right then and there, that I think was perfection. And I do actually really like what Corey brings to this trilogy as sort of kind of a byproduct of the effect that the Shape has had on the town of Haddonfield, which I kind of put in the same category as the CW's Riverdale, where, you know, one act of violence has like permanently poisoned the rest of the small town. I wish the movie kind of spent a little bit more time leaning into that theme a little bit more of the effect that Michael had on the town. They do touch upon it throughout the trilogy. And yeah, the phrase "evil dies tonight" does get a little bit repetitive in kills, but I overall like David Gordon Green was going for. Now, one of the biggest points of criticism was the character of Allison. Tommy, I'm gonna start with you on this. One of the criticisms that I heard is that she becomes a different character in this movie compared to the previous two. Would you agree with that?
Different in a positive manner, absolutely, because the performance that Andy Matichak gives as Allison it really showcases her ability, even as the story is presented in lower levels than it is. It's risen it's risen. And the one scene I'm talking about is, without going into full detail, when she walked into the door, when she walked in the door, and she saw she saw what she saw. And the ability that she has of taking potential chicken feathers and elevating it into chicken soup was really showcased her ability as a performer. And I hope that she's able to, in the vein of Jamie Lee Curtis, is given bigger and better opportunities throughout her career going forward, because I do want to see more of Andy throughout, from many different genres, not only horror. And the way that her character has grown throughout these three films. She didn't have as much of a part in Kills as she did in Halloween 2018 due to the story, due to the essentialness of advancing the story. But even though that's why one of the story's biggest strengths is the relationship between Allison and Corey, because they share a connection with their own stories of traumatic stress. That's what connects them, and the viewer sees that and they feel that, and that's what. And by the time we get to that final moment where Allison's driving off, it may not be much to some viewers, but it really showcases the positive abilities of what a performer is able to do.
I think I agree with that. I would love to see her kind of expand what she can do beyond horror moving forward. But yeah, I like what you said about her sort of growing from her experience, and finding some sort of like, I guess, a kindred spirit to some extent, even though Corey turns out to be who he turns out to be.
Right.
Nick, your thoughts on Andy's arc, or Allison's arc throughout this film?
For me, it's not so much Andy's acting in this movie. I think she's generally good across this whole trilogy. For me, it's mostly just in the writing department. It is kind of weird having her, start to second guess her own grandma that, she was super close with in the 2018 movie and Kills, even though Laurie's pretty much confined to a hospital bed throughout the entire runtime of that movie. But with her, I just kind of found that I don't know. I probably would need to have maybe a second viewing. I do, again, find it kind of weird that she starts to doubt her own grandmother, that yeah, there's something up with this Corey guy. It's not looking good for you. I wouldn't trust him. And then she's just like, oh, what do you know, grandma? And it's like, you've been living with her for the past 4 years. So I don't know. I don't know if it would have been something that was a rewrite situation or a reshoot situation, because I do know that this basically did have like a final script rewrite done between 2019 and 2021. So I have no idea what would have changed over the course of 2 years, or if even, this would be like a Curse of Michael Myers situation where they have like a different edit of it. I don't know. So, but I generally did like her character across all three of these movies. I do kind of find it weird that the Strodes didn't just flat out decide to leave Haddonfield despite everything that had just happened again.
Right?
Yeah.
You'd think after the events of Kills that like this movie would either start or end with both of them just skipping town.
Well, I think that was a big. If they did that, it would have looked way too much like H2O. And where would they have gone? I mean, if you started in Haddonfield, like you've got it. The only way to do that is to go back to the beginning on that front. And it would have. I think that would have been too much of a. I think it would have been too much of a distraction. And from the onset, if the promotional material was that it takes place outside of Haddonfield, people think, oh, it's just another H2O. And even and the reason and when I thought back about this, H2O took place in Northern California, as did Season of the Witch. And so they were able to, I'm not sure if that was by coincidence or by design, but they were able to get away with that because it was a completely different story. Here, it wouldn't have worked because it would have been too much of a distraction, as I was saying earlier, like in 2018, the numerous references to the past franchise. And while there were still references to the franchise here and in Halloween Kills, it wasn't done to the point where it was just absolutely hammered down the viewer's throat, a la Die Another Day.
Speaking of Season of the Witch, one thing I do kind of appreciate is the fact that the title credits sequence is basically a mirror to Season of the Witch.
Absolutely.
That was a cool nod.
I don't really see the Season of the Witch comparisons beyond
Me
just the
neither.
fact that this is a different movie, because Season of the Witch is just like, no, this has nothing to do with Michael Myers or Haddonfield, nothing. This is its own thing. And I think that's why people appreciate that movie over the course of time a lot more. This one, yeah, it is different compared to the other Halloween movies. Yeah, it does take risks, but it doesn't go that far with it.
Right, yeah, I do think
I can at least appreciate it to that extent, that it is probably the riskiest since that movie. I think that'd be a better way to phrase it, but yeah, it's and plus to kind of, I guess, finish up the whole point, like I do see the point in like keeping things in Haddonfield, but like I'm more just kind of going from like a realism standpoint. I would have just been like, yeah, nothing but murders have been happening for the past few years, disappearances of people being pulled into the goddamn sewer. We're getting out of here. I don't want to live here.
how is trick-or-treating even allowed in Haddonfield anymore?
Honestly, that's a good question.
Michael's not even with Michael still at large, they're still letting their kids trick-or-treat. That makes no sense.
I'm gonna quote the cop in the cowboy hat. What are they gonna do? Cancel Halloween?
Exactly. And because there's so much advancement. I mean, they could have added like a little something like in a blink and you'll miss it moment to describe that, but Nick, you hit the nail on the head. And you know, the way that I see it is, going back to the Season of the Witch comparison, I think that it really showcases the idea of this being more, not simply a trilogy, but when you look at the lore as a whole, it coincides with the original anthology vision that John Carpenter had. And this is why Halloween Ends really felt more like a straightforward John Carpenter movie than a straightforward chapter within the Halloween lore. It really gives that vibe of evil that you can see when you look at evil in its purest form, when you look at Michael Myers and then the Shamrock Company back to back, and that pure meaning. And when one thinks of it they could take, and I was thinking about this, with Allison driving off at the end of it, they could do a Blair Witch type of strategy and make a movie in secret and then continue with the life of Allison. I had this idea of a movie, an anthology type movie with Andy Matichak and Mandip Gill. I don't know why I thought of these two performers, but a story taking place in some sort of an entity, something evil in a particular incarnation. I mean, call it seasonal mythology, just don't call it Halloween. But it could be that anthology type of presentation as John Carpenter intended. Because before Halloween 4, before Michael Myers came back, the idea was going to be a ghost story, and it was going to be something different every season or however long Mustafa Akkad decided to make it. But anyway,
I have always wanted to see what ideas he had after Season of the Witch, but it is kind of unfortunate that at the time that movie didn't really go over well because it didn't have Michael Myers in it.
Well, technically, if you look at the advertisements and the television sets, he was in it, but even then, it was just.
It exists as a movie in that movie.
Yeah.
Love it.
Like, I can appreciate that movie on that level. Just the fact that it does basically just consider that a movie in that movie's universe, and then just other sequels would just kind of spin off from that, I guess. I'm not 100% opposed to that idea, but, you know, just talking with the friend that I went to go see it with on Friday night, I think it's time to let this series go dormant again for a while.
Please.
I think that's probably for the best, at least for the next couple years.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, it's just Michael and Laurie just become so married between the two at this point that when one is dead, like it's done. Okay, like the Laurie Strode arc, she's essentially like Jamie Lee Curtis. In my opinion, she kind of embodies Halloween more than Michael does. Like Jamie Lee Curtis, she is married to this like in such a way that when she sends out to it, it just kind of stops becoming Halloween, in my opinion. It just, Michael Myers without her is just kind of another slasher villain. And yeah, I agree with Nick. It's time to just put the whole thing like on ice for quite a while unless they come up with an idea for that they just absolutely have to go with. It's time to
Bring back the Thorn Cult.
The Thorn Cult, yeah.
The only way I see the story coming back is if they were to go back to the Rob Zombie story and give those characters a proper send off. But but even then, I think the Michael Myers story, I mean, John Carpenter even said it itself. Like, if they could find a way to make money off of it, they'll bring it back. I mean, and that's what I was saying about they could take the characters and they could take the Allison character and advance it, because, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis has it in writing. She's done after this. There's so many possibilities that could be done. But, you know, but like I said, call it this title or that title, just don't call it Halloween.
One thing I kind of half jokingly suggested in a group chat was a crossover of Halloween and The Purge, just because I think there'd be some beautiful chaos to come from that. I haven't really given it like too much thought. It just seemed like one of those ideas that Universal and Blumhouse would be like, what if?
Well, you know, after with this one, the rights go back to the son of Mustafa Akkad. So, like the Blumhouse era, at least it's done. So I wouldn't bet on that.
I think that anything, if the right idea comes around based on if things are presented as they have been, I think that Akkad will maintain a great relationship with Blumhouse, and as long as the right people are still in charge, you know, I think that I think that they could easily pick the rights back up again based on success. I mean, who doesn't like to make money in these type of situations?
Exactly.
It's like John Carpenter is the main character and They Live now.
Getting back to the movie,
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit more about Corey, as I refer to him both as like the antagonist and also to some extent the villain protagonist. Jake, I'll start with you. What did you think about what Corey brought to this story?
I didn't think he brought anything noteworthy about. The moment that Laurie saw him outside her window standing, like that's like she saw Michael in the first movie, I was like, no, they're not. They're not seriously gonna make him the Michael of this movie, are they? And sure enough, that's exactly what. And I'm sorry, but him and Michael together killing that doctor and his girlfriend at their house was the funniest freaking thing. It was like I was watching like Batman and Robin almost, with like it was like Mikey and Corey or whatever. But and also one part where Corey walks up to Michael and like beats the shit out of this little snot-nosed little brat, just beat up Michael Myers and took his mask. Are you freaking kidding me? I practically said that out loud while watching them, which is why I'm glad I saw this at home instead of the theater. But I almost busted a gut when Michael was about to kill Corey, and like that eyes, like they zoom in on each other's eyes, like, and yeah, Corey, he accidentally killed one kid, therefore he's exactly like Michael Myers. Like, what? Like, it just felt so ham-fisted and so, again, good ideas, just botched delivery, in my opinion. Like, also, I don't get why everyone hated Laurie. I'll just say that. Like, when that one lady who was stabbed in Halloween Kills, like, she was stabbed in the throat and her husband was killed. And her sister comes up to Laurie and said, "You tempted that man to come here and do all this killing." I was like, what? How is this Laurie's fault? You know, like, and the stuff between Corey and his parents was actually kind of funny. Like when his mother slapped him, I got a chuckle out of that, and I seriously doubt that was the intention. Yeah, everything about this movie was just so. It was slapdash. That's the word I would say. It's just slapdash, in my opinion. It was just a lot of ideas they wanted to explore that should have been explored earlier in the previous two movies. Yeah, it was just so, like, it was haphazard. It was very haphazard. That's all I gotta say about the theming, and like with Corey making him the center of it now. It was just so. That's really all I gotta say. I'm just rambling at this point.
The best way I can describe that, Jacob, is when Laurie, like that wonderful moment when she's walking out of the market and that confrontation, it's really Laurie's first essence, as in the case of the time jump, essence of the town of Haddonfield and everything that they did. She was bedridden throughout that film. So it's really that experience of those stories coming together as they did. So the best way I can describe it, I was actually really surprised by the opening, because the way that it went down, as it presented that big picture aspect of it, and the introduction of Campbell's character, played by Canadian performer Roan Campbell, that was the big risk in that opening moment, because I was sitting there and I'm expecting, watch, Michael's gonna come out or something, and then time passes and then it goes on, and I'm like, wow, that's actually really brave that they took that big of a risk. As Corey's story continued, it had elements of, it reminded me a lot of the movie Christine. And it made so much sense that the writers, when I went back and I read that they used that movie as inspiration, And I was like, there you go, because that's when as I was saying earlier, felt more like a John Carpenter movie than a straightforward Halloween story. When he goes to the sewer and he sees and he and Michael come face to face for the first time, that moment, I was more, the look in the eyes. Well, two things. One, I was more upset about that with this being the last Halloween movie, at least for the foreseeable future with Michael Myers. I'm thinking to myself, what? That's how you reintroduce Michael to the world? Wasn't as grandstandy of an entrance in that respect as Halloween Kills when he walked out of the fire. But when you look at when he looked at him in the eye and you see that literal bit by bit shot recreated from Halloween H2O with the kid in the corkscrew, and Michael sees something in Corey that causes him to reconsider. When you fast forward to that moment in the sewer when he returns and they go at it, that camera work from when he walked in and he sees Michael there, and it was a one-shot take. The camera was just there seeing this transpire ultimately until Corey gets the mask and leaves. And that was so admirable. And as it was just so admirable, those types of decisions go a long way in making such a compelling movie. Not a perfect movie, but still something really incredible and admirable in that sense.
There is something we haven't mentioned yet. Nick, I'll let you expound on this. How did you feel about the bullies that kept following him around?
Oh, I just felt like that was one of the weaker parts of the movie for me. That just felt like straight up something out of a lesser Stephen King novel to me rather than a Halloween movie, to be honest. Like they were just so two-dimensionally written. And I honestly, like, I get it. It's a slasher movie. You're not supposed to necessarily give a shit if specific characters die or not. But in this case, I was literally just like, they're just hamming up the body count. For me, though, because I didn't really say much about Corey's character or that scene with Laurie outside the grocery store, I'm kind of mentally piecing together the whole comparisons and like commentaries on the entire pandemic with COVID, with Laurie just coming out and being blamed for Michael going on his rampages. A lot of that I can kind of see as a lot of people paying attention to that radio DJ, because I mean the movie literally does open with the radio DJ just, talking about, if Michael Myers is going to come back this year.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I wouldn't say it's too far-fetched to go, maybe she was a big fan of this disc jockey, got her information from that and thought, oh, she must have either been friends or, did something to, give Michael mixed messages, did something to piss him off, and that's what made him start killing people. So, like, yeah, I can kind of see it being a commentary about misinformation in regards to COVID to some degree.
So the DJ's like is like an Alex Jones thing. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of to a degree, but just like general misinformation, period.
No, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go that far as an Alex Jones. I saw him as more of a Barry Sims homage or wannabe than anything else. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt it.
Oh no, all good. For me though, the main character that I thought was the most similar to Corey, actually, I was totally getting Tommy Jarvis vibes from Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah,
5 and 6.
Yeah,
I was more getting those kind of vibes going back to that character throughout this movie, just him slowly just going like, is he turning into Michael Myers? I guess it's not the paranormal shit's not particularly well explained or given like a proper conclusion, because they do they set up something with the Myers house in the last movie of him just staring outside of his sister's window, but it's never really fleshed out or explained. It's just kind of there just to get Karen out of the way for the next movie at this rate.
I'd say that was a pretty nice setup. Like, it was the perfect final shot. It was like back and forth, like the face on Laurie and then the face on Michael. And then that just was the perfect setup. Like they're setting up a showdown for the future.
I see. I get it, maybe, but it's just not well expanded upon or explained, especially just given how literally the first movie in this trilogy was supposed to just be a back to basics Michael versus Laurie movie. But yeah, Corey did not. I don't hate him. I don't love him. He doesn't annoy me. Like, for me, the bully characters don't go to the same extent of obnoxiousness like the side characters in either zombie remake, where they're just sadistic pieces of shit the entire time and arguably scarier than Michael Myers himself. But yeah, Corey, he's not on the same level as like a Jamie Lloyd for me, or, you know, I guess characters from H2O, or okay, maybe not Resurrection, but yeah, you guys get what I'm kind of going for. I don't hate him. I don't love him. I'm just kind of indifferent towards him. Maybe on future viewings that might change.
Yeah, he's a kind of more of a middle of the road character. I just like, I think I like him more conceptually than him as like his own individual character. But
it's the writing and the execution side of things.
Yeah, and that's always going to be an issue with this franchise. Like, it's kind of like Jurassic Park, where like they got things so right the first time that any sort of follow-up is going to trip over itself in some capacity.
Actually, I'm going to mention these two. I'm going to spoil two cameos, if that's cool. Who noticed two big cameos in this movie?
You're talking about the one at the end, right?
No. So
okay.
One is that confrontation between Allison and Corey at that diner with the cop that won't stop harassing her. Mike, you might even have noticed this. There's a specific guitar player in the background in that scene.
Oh, the names escape me right now.
Zach Myers from Shinedown appears in the movie for like 2 seconds.
Oh, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, because I know he's buddies with James Jude Courtney, and like he's been on his Instagram a bunch. So yeah, he shows up for 2. I'm actually kind of surprised that James didn't try to get Spencer from Ice Nine Kills to be in the movie in some capacity.
Oh man, that would have been so cool for Ice Nine Kills fans, certainly, but I mean specifically like that they have such like a crossover fan base between like horror and metal. It would just be perfect.
And this other cameo is also going to be a little bit more obvious. The receptionist at that DJ's radio station, Darcy the Mail Girl from Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there are other cameos I might have missed. I know that in Kills that Bob Odenkirk makes a super quick cameo. So, you know, those were just the two that I thought were the most noticeable.
Let me say this about the marching band bullies, because when one thinks about the creativity in Halloween Ends that the writers put into the story, this is where that utmost level of appreciation comes back in. When the bullies were introduced, they pull up in this car and you're automatically thinking about going back to homages, the Mustang from Halloween 5. And when they start talking, I was more distracted by the leader in the Letterman. I just saw him more as a Maxwell Jacob Friedman wannabe than anything else. But the reason they could have gone down the cliche route and have football players in that particular segment, but they opted with marching band characters instead. And
I do appreciate that.
Yeah, it brings a sense of realism to it in a way too, because you think if there is not that one bully in a marching band, swim team, football team, basketball team, etc., then you're kidding yourself. But anyway, I thought about it. Took me back to how Quentin Tarantino composed this screenplay to Pulp Fiction, and when he created the character of Winston Wolfe in the Falling Action, that scene where they walk out to the garage. You got a corpse in the car, minus a head in the garage, take me to it. And they walk out and they take a look inside. And he asks Jimmy, played by Quentin Tarantino, if he could get him a cup of coffee. And he said, yeah, sure. And when he asked him how he takes it, he could have easily gone down the cliche route of saying all black. But he didn't. He said lots of cream, lots of sugar. So that 1 ounce of creativity in a way to be different, that's so appreciative from a filmmaking standpoint that you just can't deny. And this is why I ended up going positive on my Letterboxd, because I was so on the fence that this type of creativity just could not be denied.
Which is why I really appreciate their death scene.
Yes.
I think that's where Green and production designers and the choreographers really had fun just completely decimating these guys who absolutely had it coming.
Blowtorch to the fucking mouse.
Oh, that was entertaining. My favorite death scene though is the disc jockey's death scene where Michael just Michael or Corey or whoever it is wearing the mask just stabs him right through the tongue.
And then cuts it off with scissors.
It's on the record,
Yeah,
and
then just
like
leaves the tongue on the record. I'm like, that is so stupid, but I'm just having a blast.
The Barry Sims wannabe getting what he deserves.
Symbolism. Also, like, you gotta know the symbolism, like the tongue. It's his tongue that's being heard, like, and the tongue making the scratchy noise. And then we cut to Karen in her car, like she assumes that something's wrong with her radio.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That type of creativity.
I gotta put a feather in this movie's cap for that. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, sometimes just going over the top is the right decision. In this case, yeah, that was pretty entertaining.
I kind of wish it went more that route, because at least it wouldn't put on so many freaking airs.
And that's another thing. The preview audience that I watched it with was so involved that moment, along with the entire duration of the movie. From start to finish, they were so involved. It almost just felt, when you're sitting in an audience and you literally feel yourself moving with the movie itself, and based on the reactions, as if like you're on a roller coaster, but you're not in a D-box seat. That's when you know you can take something away from it, regardless of what you personally think of it from that regard.
And this is why I go see these movies in Dolby. Because I don't know how it is for other theaters, but for mine, our two biggest screens are set up with the Dolby speakers, so you get like the full immersion. And when the movie kind of kicks into high gear with like those two specific kill shots, that's when I'm just like completely invested in what's happening.
Absolutely.
Of course, we can't talk about a Halloween movie without mentioning how great the music is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Of course. John Carpenter, the fact that he's making music and touring with his kids, that's just wholesome. I have to allow that.
like when someone's both a director and composer, that's actually my favorite kind of. It happens so rarely, but it's so cool because you're guiding what the audience is both seeing and hearing, and that's just such a brilliant combo. I think like it takes real skill to pull that off.
Even though at this rate, Carpenter hasn't made a movie in 12 years at this rate.
I feel like he's more into the music side of things than the filmmaking. But if it's true that he does direct a Dead Space movie, I would be all for that.
Has he officially retired?
I don't know about officially retired, but it just feels like he's more into composing these days.
Yeah. Or was it just because like was his last movie just really panned or something?
Yeah, the war did not really his last going past In the Mouth of Madness. Carpenter really never saw the amount of critical acclaim he got throughout the 70s and 80s. So yeah, just his later movies are considered like the lesser in his filmography at this rate. So Carpenter was just more involved in the music side of things, and I guess that's just where his focus has kind of been. He's always kind of seen himself as the rock and roll filmmaker, so but for me, I kind of felt like the score was kind of more subdued rather than just kind of popping off in the previous two movies. Is it just me, or
I kind of felt that to some extent. I guess the whole movie kind of has a little bit more of a subdued atmosphere, until the kills start doing their thing. But this isn't quite like the previous two where the score was really popping off. But when it did, it was great.
Oh yeah, like even for a movie that I didn't see the Firestarter remake, but the amount of stuff that I've heard about that remake, all I can say is I'm glad I have the vinyl pre-ordered and I will never see the movie.
Nice.
Just as a side, Firestarter was also given the day and date treatment.
Of course it was.
From what I heard, like it's from the critical reception is anything to go by. That's why it was given that treatment.
The thing too about the music is when you listen to how each entry in this trilogy sounds, you listen to the music in Halloween 2018 and it's your traditional Halloween movie. And I think John was interviewing, he was saying, I think it was Cody that did something really a uniqueness with a cello or an electric cello or electric guitar. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like that unique sound. And then it gradually grew and evolved. I'll use the main title theme for an example. When you listen to the main title theme for Halloween Kills and the addition of the choir in that, how that made it unique and standing on its own. Then you go to Halloween Ends and you hear this finely tuned piano play the theme at the beginning. And then minus the tidbits, like when they go into the now abandoned house that Corey babysat in with that little dun, 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 dun. Like as that little nod, you don't get the typical Halloween trademark moments like dun, 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 as you had before. You hear something completely original. And I thought about this specifically as the police came in after Michael was killed. They had and the music I was listening to, and I'm like, huh. And it added to it in the most unique way. It was original. It was absolutely original. And that's what, and it was kind of refreshing in a way because it just really added to the uniqueness of this trilogy.
Overall, I think that's what I appreciate the most about this movie. They take chances in ways that they didn't necessarily have to. We could have just seen the same movie three times in a row, but instead instead, since again this is Jamie Lee Curtis's final film, they wanted to go out on a different note. And speaking of which, something I haven't brought up yet, the kind of sort of romance between Laurie and Frank.
Yes.
What did you guys think of
Patton?
that?
That was just adorable. They didn't
It
have
was-
to do it, but it's cute old couple stuff. I can't get too mad at it.
I love how when they're talking to each other in the grocery store, they just come across as like just adorable, like junior high school lovers.
It's impressive, I will say, that Jamie Lee Curtis and Will Patton have such good chemistry, despite Will Patton being completely like introduced in this trilogy. And I thought that was conveyed. I thought their genuine friendship was conveyed pretty well.
It was that heartwarming moment that made it through, and it was that glimmer of hope, a glimmer of hope that tells the viewer that even if it's just for a moment, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I can kind of picture a lot of that. I haven't really mentioned a lot of this yet, but the actor who plays Michael across these three movies, so James Jude Courtney, I would say he's kind of what Kane Hodder is to Friday the 13th, the way he is to this trilogy. I think aside from Nick Castle, he might be the best Michael Myers that we've gotten, just because of like how intimidating he is, and just like the sheer like not just the height but just his mannerisms as Michael Myers, and that you rarely if ever see his face, and all you see of him is like a very quick brief face shot.
Yeah, I like how all like at most you see either like his chin or like a silhouette. Not like it's kind of like the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. Like the point of the character is really like the mask is more the character than like the person on the inside. And it's great how often they go out of their way to avoid showing his full face.
I think, like, yeah, I do think like if they do remove like if we got a full view of his mask when Laurie finally does him in, I wouldn't really object to that too much. I get what you're saying. Like I do, yeah, it is a commentary on how like when people think of Michael, like he never really became Michael again until he got the mask back in 2018. Like, but I do think one detail they could have added, like what if like as Laurie was killing Michael, like as she like slashing his wrist open, I think they could have, just for that specific moment. Yeah, you can think this is dumb if you want, but what if you just said Laurie as he's dying?
I wouldn't have been against the idea, but it would make more sense if they still kept the whole brother-sister relationship. It'd make more sense then rather than
Like,
just
I think
completely
that would
abandoning
convey
that.
I think that would convey how much, like, in a way, Laurie does kind of mean a lot to Michael. Like, Michael, in a way, kind of, like, would show that he kind of, like, admires just how much she refuses to die. Like, she's his biggest adversary. Like, he was, like, her big... It's almost like it would be powerful if that was the first word he ever said, literally since he was a little kid.
I'm not entirely against the idea, but I'm also fine with just the way he was taken out.
At least it's not the Rob Zombie movies, which
yeah,
biggest hot take. I actually think I would much rather, if I had to, I'd rather watch Halloween 2 again than the first Halloween remake, because again, that one at least it tries to do something different and does its own thing, but at least it's not as stupid as him just screaming "die" at the top of his voice.
Or like when the last song, like the song is like a slow version of "Love Hurts."
Yeah, no, like that. Well, just Love Hurts being in a Halloween movie is just all kinds of no. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say best not to risk it by doing that. I think it is cooler by just having Michael say absolutely nothing, just because it's just kind of in line with that character.
I'm not saying that's absolutely what they should have done. It's just that, you know, like if they had to have him say one word, like that would really be a gut punch for the audience. I can think of a lot worse single words for him to say than Laurie.
True.
Like die.
No, that's fair. I get where you're coming from. That's fair. Do we want to tear into their showdown though?
We should get into the final 10 to 15 minutes, because like I said, well, I understand that most of the people who are kind of criticizing this movie or criticizing this marketing for only really highlighting the final 10-15 minutes of the movie, which kind of feels like false advertising. At least the final conflict does it does deliver the most definitive ending to the story.
I think that.
Oh,
Go ahead, Nick. No, you first.
Oh yeah, for me, I pretty much just said, you know what, this is like this is at least the third time we've seen these two fight each other. But the main thing that I personally really love, beyond just like how, realistically choreographed the fight is, I just appreciate that they didn't have Laurie just purely kicking the crap out of him. Like, she is struggling going up against this guy, and I know he could make jokes about how it's literally two people in their 60s duking it out, and then in 10 years we'll get another movie of them fighting in the old folks' home. But I do appreciate that, they did have Laurie actually struggle going up against Michael in this, and that it's not an easy fight for her.
And I like how Jamie Lee Curtis insists on doing these fights like by herself, that like you are seeing Laurie in this struggle. It's not like a stunt double. At least not all the time. Like for as many times like as you see her face, like that's really her duking it out.
That's her being tossed across that kitchen table like a rag doll.
And the thing with this setup is that one way I like to think of this one moment in the movie as having a pre-fight trailer, something like what the showdown before the showdown, if you will, and the face-off. But instead of with Michael and that scene between Laurie and Corey in the house that he babysat in, where she broke down the definitions of evil, that ultimately showcased her as the Loomis of this trilogy. And going back to 2018, when we got that character, Dr. Sartain, this is what I was saying earlier about why wasn't Aaron Corey the Loomis character of that story, and ultimately Laurie being the hero. And while one could complain that the fight itself was not as mano a mano, something that the argument could be made, well, she was living in this compound for this entire time, but it's forgivable in the sense, because that final fight, when we got to it, served its purpose. Some little tidbits could have been added where when she realizes that the window's open, like she could have looked at while she eventually set down her pistol, she could have just looked at it and just be like, what's the point? But when they start fighting, there's no music. It's not until that flashback sequence building up to that moment where we get the classic Halloween movie. And it was just simple yet effective. Is this the best fight between Michael and Laurie? No. If you had to go back and watch a good showdown between the two, it would be the one from H2O. But it served its purpose, and ultimately it got the job done.
Now, about his death. So in this franchise, or at least like if you include the original and the rest of this trilogy, the following things cannot kill the Shape: bullets, knife wounds, fire, or
that works so well in Halloween 2.
or any other projectile weapons. And yet they had to come up with the most foolproof way to kill him at the car shop.
Deader than dead.
Turned him into hamburger.
Yeah. Like they already decapitated him, and that turned out to just be a paramedic in Halloween Resurrection. I remember that. So that would just take that already would just take the wind out of that if they decapitate him in this movie. So they just had to grind it, because what the fuck else was there?
I don't see any other better way to even try to bring him back, unless you wanted to be really ballsy and just be like, it was the Thorn cult.
The power of reincarnation. There's no, you'd have to have a convincing argument to say that would make money, but yeah, that's no chance. No chance. He's deader than dead. It's like the argument of Stu coming back in the Scream franchise. He's deader than dead. Michael Myers in this incarnation is deader than dead.
Yep.
Unless like a Doctor Strange portal comes out, and Loomis from the Thorn trilogy comes out and says, "Laurie, we have a problem," and then he gets stabbed by Michael in the Thorn trilogy.
That would be hysterical. I would almost be willing to pay money opening night to go see that multiple times.
Good Lord.
Or Busta Rhymes from Resurrection.
No.
Let's not go to that degree. And also I do appreciate the subtle uses of Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult throughout the movie, because like even during the supermarket bit, I was like, that's Don't Fear the Reaper.
What did you guys think of Burn It Down?
I think I liked it just fine.
That just kind of went one ear and out the other for me. I didn't even remember there being a song in this.
Yeah, that was one of the songs that I was like, this isn't a Carpenter song, so what's going... That was the main thing that I noticed, just that, like, I really feel like you could have used a John Carpenter song to be in that. I don't even remember which scene this would have been in. Much like Jacob, it kind of just went in one ear out the other for me.
Yeah, it was the first time it was heard was on one of the motorcycle rides between Corey and Allison, and they played a snippet of it in the end credits, and I think one other time in the movie. But yeah, it was, when one looks back on music usage throughout the entire lore, they think of they think of, it's like we were saying, Don't Fear the Reaper, which makes a lot of sense on that love letter homage front, that would be the end credit needle drop. But when looking at something like And Fools Shine On from Brothers Kane, or Creed's What's This Life For, which was absolutely phenomenal, an absolutely phenomenal needle drop from H2O. And when we listen to Hunter's Moon in the end credits, and the story that told with Michael's journey to come back and confront Laurie, and in the sense, from not only from that perspective, but from the town coming after Michael. In the case of Burn It Down, you listen to when it's first played, and then you think it back to when Allison gets out of the car as she's taking that phone call from Frank, and she sees the radio station tower literally up in flames. And you think it serves that purpose, but from a story construction standpoint, it's not one of the better ones, but it still serves its purpose in that sentiment. But at the same time, it's not Oscar material, as I was begging Universal and Blumhouse to push Hunter's Moon for last year.
Hey, I would have just allowed that just so that way Ghost can get an Oscar.
Yeah, and it was so good, Hunter's Moon.
Well, I gotta say, horror is the weirdest genre to have an original song for me. Like, I don't know what it is, but of all the genres to have an original song, horror just isn't it.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mike.
It depends. It depends on how that song is used. Like, if you're crafting a horror musical, then you better hope that original score is or original song is what you're going for. But
like, if you're like for a song that's like the end credits, though, that's just I don't know what it is. I honestly don't. Maybe it's because it's not really a kind of emotion horror like to convey in a song, though, or I don't know.
Puts a bow on the ribbon. It just ties everything up together, and it serves as the reminder of what the viewer witnessed on that front.
I get that.
Oh yeah,
that works for like a drama or something, or even an action movie to an extent, but I just don't know what it is with horror. That's my only explanation, is that, yeah.
It serves as the purpose, and not only when talking about the genre as a whole, you think of the aforementioned numbers I mentioned throughout the course of the Halloween franchise. Friday the 13th is the same way. When we got to He's Back, the Man Behind the Mask, even with Darkest Side of the Night, from when Jason Takes Manhattan, when you have to really listen to that and think, what purpose does this number, if it's written specifically for the movie, what purpose does that serve, and how can we pitch it? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The thing is, Man Behind the Mask, that kind of went like the goofy tone of that one. But this, like, it's just I don't even remember the songs, but for what it is, like, I just don't see how a movie that tries to pull off this much for a horror movie, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm assuming that song was trying to be more serious than Man Behind the Mask. Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Not as award worthy as something like Hunter's Moon would have been, but still, you can still listen to that and get into the vibe of that cash grab slasher. You're able to have fun with it.
At the end of the day, fun is what I go to the slasher genre for. And while Halloween Ends is a bit more on the serious side of things, I still overall had a good time with it. Nick, your final thoughts?
I will probably end up watching it again when it comes out in 4K. I'm still mad at Scream Factory for not putting out Curse of Michael Myers H2O or Resurrection out in 4K here in Canada, and I have to import it, but nonetheless, that aside, I will probably end up watching it again. For me, where it kind of ranks in the series, it's kind of in the middle for me. It doesn't get to the highs of like the 2018 movie 2, 3, but it doesn't get to the lows of like Curse of Michael Myers, where it turns him into Uncle Dad, or Resurrection with, again, pretty much any scene with Busta Rhymes in it. But I don't know. For me, this definitely isn't the worst of the series. It's not the best either, but I had a fun theater experience with it, so I can't get that mad at it.
Nice. Jacob, your final thoughts?
I was just gonna say, like, what they really should have done, like, when you have the first two movies in the trilogy be more or less on the same night, that kind of implies that Halloween Ends will like be at dawn of that day, and I kind of wish they went more of that route, like where it's just Laurie and Michael just going at it, like, or like just have the first two movies be a little more set up while still having the kills. I think like Halloween Ends should have been like the all hell breaks loose movie, but man, like they focused on so many last minute things in this movie. Like the most interesting scene for me, the one that better conveyed what it was trying to go, was the jack-o'-lantern in the opening credits, where it was like morphing from one to another. Like I was expecting like the jack-o'-lantern sort of rots, the mirror of the first one, where it's just a rotting pumpkin but just inflates back to a ripe pumpkin. And this one, like, I thought that was pretty clever, but that's really what it goes. Like, this was just a baffling way to conclude this trilogy for me. It's clear that they did not really have a grand vision, like, to make this a trilogy. When they, like, the few kills and were a little fun to watch, but that's kind of, and the ending was sort of, I liked the intensity between Laurie and Michael in it. But again, focusing on the wrong things, bringing up a lot of themes just way too late. They really should have just left it alone after the first 2018, or even better yet, just leave the first one alone. That the original one, period, just have that be the ending, because that ending of the first one is so much more powerful, really, than any ending that could have come up afterwards.
So basically, you're saying this franchise is a victim of its own success.
Exactly. There you go.
Tommy, your final thoughts?
I knew that Halloween Ends was going to be divisive, but I didn't expect just how divisive it was going to be. And when looking back on this trilogy, this H4O trilogy, one is really able to come to that aforementioned appreciation of creativity in the story that it was trying to tell. And when I think back at the beginning of this episode to when Jamie Lee Curtis gave that 2012 panel where she shared her experience in making H2O and Resurrection, regardless of how one feels about Halloween Ends, was Jamie Lee Curtis's return to the franchise worth it? And I found this answer from a press tour interview that she gave over at Collider. The question was, is there always going to be that risk of a new shape of evil forming around the character of Laurie Strode? And I won't spoil the answer because the viewer has to see this interview for themselves, because what Jamie Lee Curtis said really hit home to me, and it made me think about, and I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it, but I strongly encourage those who have seen Halloween Ends to check out this interview, because it's so powerful that it made me think about my own reflections in related moments. And going on to that final scene of Laurie and Frank on the front porch, and then going out the same way the first one ended, with those flat shots of the house, even if it's just for a moment, it's a solid reminder that everything is going to be okay. And I love Halloween Ends even more after watching that interview.
Yeah, I saw that interview earlier today, and just seeing Jamie Lee Curtis getting so emotional, kind of reflecting on her time with the franchise and how this is basically the reason why she has the career that she has. I found that just incredibly moving.
Absolutely.
And yeah, on the whole, it's things like that, and hearing like other interviews from the director and some of the other people on the cast, it does kind of make me appreciate what they were going for with Halloween Ends just a little bit more. You know, I understand that this movie and the franchise in general can be very divisive, but at no point would I call it lazy. Some films more than others, but with this one, I think they ended Laurie's story on a good note. It's nice that in her final moments on screen, she did catch a glimmer of hope.
That's right. And as it started on that one Halloween morning in 1978, the sun was out, the leaves were blowing, there were kids on bikes, and now, as on that morning of November 1st, 2022, at this point, it's the same thing.
And with that, another episode comes to a close. Before we get out of here, first of all, Tommy, thank you as always for joining us. Where can people find you online?
Twitter at T_Hughes35. Follow me on Letterboxd, Instagram, and Snapchat at the TMoney35. You can also check me out at Last Word on Sports, where I write about motorsport news and feature opinionated editorials every so often. And just look up Thomas Hughes at Last Word on Sports, and you'll see my motorsport stories. And be sure to subscribe and check out my Letterboxd reviews.
Awesome. Jacob, where can everyone find you?
Find me on Facebook under J.O. Crable, Krehbiel. I am also part of the Renegade Pop Culture Facebook group.
And Nick, where can everyone find you?
Super Saiyan Death Metal God on Instagram. That's where I post currently the 31-day horror challenge from Nightmare on Film Street. That's where I'm basically doing a horror movie a day based on certain themes per day. And that's mostly where I post album covers, video games, just whatever I'm in the mood for. And you can also find me as a mod for Catherine Isabel from Ginger Snaps on Twitch. Come say hi. We'll gift you subs to her channel. Yeah, come find us. Come find me there.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on Podchaser, on YouTube, on the Banana Meter. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Marquee. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.
Evil dies tonight until the next reboot comes out.